Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the TCT Podcast here on YouTube. My name is Gavin Campbell, and alongside me, as always, my two good friends, Tyson Snyder and Cale Fleming. On today's rundown, we're going to jump into the Cubs and Brewers clinching a playoff spot in the National League and who will win that NL Central Division. And then we're going to jump into predicting the Illinois men's basketball team's starting five, and then move on to NFL Sunday as well as Thursday Night Football last night. And then, of course, we're going to finish up with Central Illinois High School football. But for now, let's go ahead and jump back up to the MLB. I know we touched on it briefly on the last episode, but let's go ahead and talk about the Cubs. I know you guys were a little worried the last time we brought up Chicago, Milwaukee staying hot and everything, St. Louis in the mix. But with both the teams clinching on Wednesday, I guess who is the best shot to win this division down the stretch? Excuse me.
Down the stretch, as of right now, I'm going to hate to say this, the Brewers are playing the Tigers this weekend. So that's a big problem for Chicago because we obviously, for the last series of the year, we kicked off game one with them, 1:20 this afternoon on Friday the 28th. We have to play the Cardinals, the second hottest team right behind the Cubs, and the Brewers, third hottest, second hottest, whatever you want to classify them as, and NL Central. And they're still battling for a wild card position because they're only, what we established, they're a game behind the Dodgers.
Right. The Cardinals are one game behind the second wild card spot right now, which makes them hungry.
Absolutely, and the fact, too, that pitching staff that they have, well, Wainwright's starting today and he's not doing so well. He's got a pretty high pitch count rolling, but the fact that they have Jack Flaherty, Miles Michaelis, I think Walker's back off of the DL now. They got the whole staff that can just tear an offense apart. I don't know. To me, to answer the original question, I just feel like the Brewers have the best opportunity this weekend than the Cubs do.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. As of right now, the Brewers have a much better shot. We need a combination of 3 Brewers losses and 3 Cubs wins for the Cubs to clinch to clinch the first spot in that division. And with the Brewers playing the Tigers, it's not looking likely that they're going to lose, which means we have to sweep the Cardinals, which Cale touched on. They're hungry. They want that second wild card spot. They want to be in this year's playoffs, and they've got an outstanding young team going for them right now. So the Brewers have a better shot to take home that win this week and kind of round out the rest of the season. But don't put it past the Cubs. They've struggled a little bit, but they know it's time to lock it down, time to get her done and get in the playoffs, and they definitely need an off day, so they're going to push for real hard these last 3 days so they can earn that off day and move into the end of the final regular season.
I don't want to doubt the Cubs at all, but it all goes down to them having to play 30 games in 30 days with 1 day off, so technically 29 games in 29 days. Not near as much rest, not near as much time to just chill. Basically, that's all I'm going to say. It's not enough time to chill or relax. I don't want to doubt the Cubs at all just for the fact that they are the Chicago Cubs, 2016 World Series champions. We have exactly the same team. But, two, you got to think of as well, we're tired. We're just dead tired. And not only that, we have the whole Addison Russell situation. They've got that in the back of their head. I don't want to say that that's an Achilles heel by any means. Great players will put that behind them, but it's there.
Well, and his wife, with the comments she made earlier today as well, coming out, just putting salt in the wound and adding to that situation.
Right, yeah. So we have that whole situation there with Addison Russell, which honestly he's probably not going to make another MLB roster unless somebody picks him up. I don't want to say that because I don't know for sure. But I don't know. The Cubs right now, they're struggling. We got a bunch of guys struggling. KB homered today, so that's a good thing other than there's a solo shot, but he hit the ball probably 410, 420 feet, I would say. So as long as our bats can wake up and our pitching staff can keep doing what it does, it all comes down to pitching, though, honestly. Our bats got to wake up, too. But
all right, with that said, we touched on the NL Central. I know before we started the show today, off air, we were talking about a bunch of different playoff scenarios because we know the American League is pretty much set in stone at this point. When it comes to the National League, there's 8, 9, 10 different scenarios that could play out with all the teams that are involved. Tyson, I just want to get your thoughts on this. What is the most probable outcome in your mind coming down to the last three days of baseball?
Well, we touched on the NL Central and how they're leading the push right now. No matter how that turns out, we will get the 1 and the 4 seed for the playoffs, whether it's Cubs at the 1 or Brewers at the 1. Either team will get the first wild card spot. I would like that to see the Cubs, but we said we need a combination 3 wins, 3 losses between the Cubs and the Brewers. So right now it's looking likely that Milwaukee might slip up in there and take that final spot. Hopefully not. But as far as the NL West goes, Gavin, you and I called this earlier in the season. We figured Colorado would keep kind of petering out and stay a little bit lower. I think the Rockies will continue to claim that top spot in the NL West. Hopefully the Cubs can sweep the Cardinals and push them out of the playoffs this year, which means the Dodgers will get that second spot. So right now for me, basically what I'm seeing in my head is if the Cubs can get their stuff figured out, I've got Cubs at 1, Atlanta at 2, Colorado at 3, the Brewers at 4, and the Dodgers at 5. Meaning the Brewers and the Dodgers would play for the wild card spot to play the Cubs starting at Wrigley Field to start the playoffs.
Right, so that wild card game taking place in Milwaukee, hypothetically speaking, what chance do you give the Brewers to take down the Dodgers? Because we know the Cubs have struggled with them in the past, referring to Los Angeles, and I don't think that they want to see them in the divisional round.
Well, the NL Central is holding the reigning title right now. The NL Central is hot. They had 3 teams making a push for the playoffs. The third team is finally starting to slip away. But the other 2, like I said, no matter who comes out on top, they're guaranteed the first spot in the NL playoffs. So we see that both teams are better than everyone else in the NL so far. I think Milwaukee's got a good shot to beat the Dodgers. I know the Dodgers are hungry. They got Manny Machado. They want to win. They've made a hell of a push to get back into the playoffs, into the playoff conversation, I should say. But I think the way with that Milwaukee's playing right now, they've got a really good shot to beat just about anybody they play.
Okay, let me switch it over to you. Colorado was not on your radar a couple months ago when we were making our predictions. You said that the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks had the best shot to win the NL West. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how my memory deceives me. And I would say that this Colorado team winning, I believe, is 8 games in a row now. Mm-hmm. What do you make of it overall? I mean, what would you say contributes is the biggest factor to Colorado staying on top of this division?
Young guns is what it all boils down to. They got, just like the Cubs in 2016, they're all young, they're all hungry. You got Charlie Blackmon, Nolan Arenado, plus that phenomenal bullpen that the Rockies have. The fact, too, that their bullpen can come in and put up goose eggs in 4 or 5 innings is pretty phenomenal. Baseball, to me, goes as far as how far your bullpen can take you. If your bullpen can take you deep and you can put your bullpen in, say, if for whatever happens for happenstance, you put your bullpen guys, you start them in the 3rd inning, and you can ride them guys all the way through the 9th, that's a World Series contender. If you do not have good pitching, which Colorado does all the way around, especially with the Cubs past closer and Wade Davis, then you can make some noise here in October, which that's what Colorado's doing. Well, it's not quite October yet, but it's about to be, and I see them in October. But no, going back to the first half of the year, or it was right around the All-Star break where I said that I think that I would have the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers in there. The reason why I said that, Gavin, is because the Dodgers are capable of doing anything and everything just for the sheer fact that
they can turn it on at any point.
That's the thing. Then they go out and they add Manny Machado, and then that's another red flag to me, saying that, okay, well, there's their playoff chance right there. I don't know, man. I just felt like at the time the Dodgers were the hotter team of the two. It's baseball. I don't take my own words to account, and I picked the hotter team, and I waited too long, and I didn't change it, I guess. No, honestly, though, if it comes down to the wild card and the Cubs are in it with somebody and we have to play a wild card game, I would 100% rather play that against Colorado than the Dodgers.
Well, and at the time, that wasn't a bad pick with Arizona and LA. We were all very much torn how that division was going to end up, because Arizona was the hottest team at that time. It just so happens the last 3-4 weeks they've finished 2-8, 3-7 every 10 games or whatever. They've taken a major hit and very stagnated horribly towards the end of the season here. So at the time that wasn't a bad pick, but we saw how Arizona kind of self-destructed.
I do want to say this, though. The National League champion, whoever goes to that National League CS, is going to be out of the NL Central. I can tell you that right now. And I'm going to stick with that. Even if it doesn't happen, you can ridicule me later for it, Gavin, but that's going to happen. The National League champion is going to come out of the Central.
Well, let me say this: if it ends up being 3 teams from the Central, which is still a possibility, although it's been dropping over the past week, it's still possible. I don't think anyone would argue with you when you have a 60% chance to get at least one of those teams to the championship series.
Right. I wasn't really going off of that. I was just going for the fact that the sheer talent of the Central's better, because the Cubs and the Brewers have both beat the Braves multiple times this year, and the same with the fact that the Braves have also lost to the Rockies and the Dodgers. So therefore, which the Cubs can beat both, although the Rockies did give us a little bit of a struggle, or a little bit of a problem in the first half of the year, I'll say, when we did go out there and play them for 4 games. So, but I'm going to say this, even though that, yes, you're right, that if 3 teams do make it, they got a 60% chance of winning. I'm going to go off of the fact that sheer talent alone is the reason why one of those NL Central teams is going to win the National League.
Right. What I was going to add to that real quick is that
Sorry.
No, it's okay. That the reason they have 3 teams is because of the amount of talent that's in that division, and that's why they were able to get so many teams in the playoffs potentially.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, you got to look at it. You got to look at this Cubs roster, this Brewers roster. Christian Yelich is in the league for MVP voting this season in the National League. So, with that stud over there, and like I said, I can sit there and I can name that whole offense, which Tyson and I kind of pointed out when they put Travis Shaw, a natural third baseman, over at second base. We thought they were going to kind of implode. The Brewers are going to Brewers. So, I don't know. It just kind of worked out for them, I guess. So, props to them. I'm glad to see somebody other than St. Louis in the talks for once.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, with that said, we'll make sure that we keep an eye on the last 3 games, and come Monday, we will be making
be real happy Monday or really upset.
Absolutely, we'll be making our playoff predictions with a very special guest who I will not name until Monday, October 1st. But with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our second topic of the day, gentlemen. University of Illinois Fighting Illini men's basketball team. Cale, I know that you are very excited about this. We're going to go ahead and predict our starting 5 lineups. Very young team, very, very young team. A lot of talent, a lot of potential. Cale, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you and start us off with your potential starting 5 for Illinois.
The reason why I wanted to talk about this is because, for those of you that don't know, official practice for the NCAA kicked off Tuesday, which was I can't remember what day it was.
The 25th.
25th. Okay, so they kicked off Tuesday. They had a little 2.5-hour scrimmage that the public could go in and see. So I did not get a chance to go over there and watch, but I wish I could. But going off of that, my starting 5, which is way too early because you never know what could happen. God forbid somebody gets hurt or anything happens. Somebody gets beat, whatever. Number 1 guy is going to be Trent Frazier.
Yep.
Obviously.
I think that's a given.
That's a
We can all
universal
agree on
pick,
that,
yeah.
He is the leader of this team, unsung leaders, coming in his sophomore season. Tyson and I and Gavin, we all saw what he did last year. He tore up some Big Ten defenses, especially with his lights-out three-point shooting, which is what Underwood wants. And now that he's gotten his body right and his vertical even better than what it was, he's going to be the real deal. So obviously Trent Frazier, the leader, is going to be my number 1 starter. Number 2, this is where Jake, if he's listening, is probably going to differ with me a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and take Io at number 2 for the fact that he's a 5-star true freshman that's not going to get redshirted. So, therefore, if you got a 5-star guy, I'm going to call him a 5-star, even though they have him labeled at 4. But for Illinois standards, he's a 5. You got to have a guy.
You're not wrong.
You got to have a guy in there like
Right.
that, like Io. Tyson, I sent you a video on Twitter the other day of Io's little lob to Tevion Jones.
Mm-hmm.
That was what'd you say? They looked like they were out there playing on the playground.
Yeah, it looks like they're out there just having fun, and that's not something we've seen with Illini basketball as of recently. It looks like they're out there just playing on the playground, at the park, doing whatever they want to do, and it's just kind of working. They're out there just having fun, throwing the ball around, not acting like it's a legit NCAA Division I basketball game, and that's great to see. They're having fun, and they're getting it done without stressing themselves, without getting to the point of exhaustion where they're going to end up losing games because they're so frustrated with each other, with their coaches, with everything. So it was really great to see that from my opinion, from that perspective, to be able to see them out there having fun, lobbing the ball like they're out there just horsing around, no one's watching.
Absolutely. This team is starting to remind me of back in 2012 when we had Brandon Paul, Tyler Griffey, Trent Richardson, and all these guys. Although they were older in 2012 when they were playing, when they went to Maui and they took down Butler, and that big deal, winning the tournament. this team is a lot younger than they are, but like you said, it's the overall aura that's surrounding this team and their attitude, and maybe them taking this not so seriously as of right now is a good thing. You would like
seem
the players
rejuvenated,
right?
bit.
You want your players to be relaxed. You don't want them to be in a state of stress or being tense all the time. You want them to be relaxed on the basketball court and just let it flow, because that's what the game's about.
Right.
And it's like you said, it's a very, very positive thing to see.
It's not boot camp.
No.
You don't have to be serious all the time. You don't have to be in line at the perfect moment. You don't have to. It's much more relaxed, rejuvenated is what I would say to describe it.
Coming in at number 3, obviously, I'm going to have Tevion Jones, just for the fact
My
that
guy.
he is going to do a lot of things on this court that are pretty remarkable for Illini standards, which is a standard in the Big Ten that I feel like Tevion Jones is going to hold up. But the fact that he can jump through the ceiling and he can throw down that lob, through traffic and with ease is pretty remarkable. Not only that, he can shoot. So Tevion's going to be a sleeper this year. A lot of fans are going to sleep on Tevion Jones. I feel like, even though Gavin and Tyson and Jake, I know he's listening, know what Tevion Jones is capable of. So he's going to be my number 3.
Yeah, and we saw that with that lob, what we were just talking about between him and Io, and I think they're really starting to mesh together. They're very relaxed playing with each other, very easy to play with. So I think Tevion Jones, right now, as of what we've seen so far through practices, he looks really good. And he looks like he's getting along and playing well with everybody. And he was a guy that we kind of debated on back and forth whether he would start or not. But at this moment, I really think he will. He's looking really good.
He should be able to. Not only that, but the fact that he's 6'7", 6'8". I mean, this is a tall guy.
Listed as a guard.
Athletic.
Yeah, and like Tyson said, he's listed as a 2 that can play multiple positions. And this is what Cale has been talking about for the last couple months, is this positionless basketball style system that Underwood wants to implement, that anyone can play anywhere at any time, so that there's not all this, well, I only have so much of this position. I don't know what to do with them. I don't know where to put them. He's trying to get rid of that, so all of his guys know the same system, know the same positions, and can play together. Anyone can play with anyone. And Tevion, I think, fits the mold 100%. This is, like Cale said, going to be a sleeper pick. He's my favorite player out of all the recruits that are coming in this year, and I'm very excited to see him play.
Number 4 and 5. That's just kind of where I'm struggling.
I think this is where we differ.
So at 4, I'm going to have to put Alan Griffin in there. A lot of guys don't really understand why I want to do that, but just for the fact that the positional system, Underwood wants to run a lot of perimeter offense. So I'm going to put Griffin at 4. But we also have Samba Kane, but he's a true 5, but he can stretch the 4, I think, because he can stretch the 4 a little bit. We've also got Georgie B, who can play the 4, and he's not going to be a true Big Ten 5. But I just feel like, honestly, I'm going to go small for my starting 5, and I'm going to put Alan Griffin at 4. And 5, these two, we talked about it off air, they don't really agree with me yet. I'm putting Kipper at 5.
Which I don't think is wrong.
Starting-wise. Anyway.
Right, I don't think that's wrong, but based on the practices, Georgie B actually looked really, really good in those practice sessions that were open to the public and the recordings and whatnot. Georgie B actually, he was a pleasant surprise for me. I'm not putting him in there, but I didn't see a whole lot from Alan Griffin that makes me put him above and beyond. So at my 4, I'm putting Kipper actually, and the guy that impressed me the most throughout those sessions was actually Samba Kane. I'm putting Samba Kane at the 5. I think they'll run a traditional big man, 7-footer Samba Kane. But he looked really good. He was shooting the ball well from 25 foot. He absolutely just stroking it. And he was passing the ball well. He was another one of those guys that was out there and just looked really loose to me. They weren't running your traditional, hey, Bama, you screen here, you do this, you get the ball around the wing and shoot. They're out there playing backyard basketball, and it looks like they're doing it and they're having fun. And Samba Kane, to me, along with Io and Tevion, he looked loose. He was getting the ball wherever, shooting it from wherever, getting rebounds, putting dunks back up. He looked really good to me, so I'm putting Kane in at my 5.
I have to agree with you on the Kipper Nichols selection. I would put him at the power forward, just because and Cale was talking to both of us really before the show. He's got an incredible vertical. His timing is unmatched by anyone on this team. I would agree, but
I still let him jump for the ball.
Right. I just think his overall defense and just his size. I don't think he's quite big enough to deal with true Big Ten centers during the game. I have no disagreement with the jump ball situation. Whoever can get up the highest can get up the highest. But I think Samba Kane is a good pick. I personally don't know the status of the health of De La Rosa. That is who I would have at my 5.
Practice number 1, he was sitting on the sidelines with nothing but words of encouragement. But he is sidelined as of right now.
Okay. Well, when he is healthy, that is who I would have at my number 5.
That's who I'm having at 5.
Because I understand Samba Kane can stretch the floor, but this guy is a beast. I think he's a 285 pounds. He's 7 foot, and he's just an animal. I mean, I think you have to have one of these guys on the floor at all times. Not to say that anyone else on this squad is not capable of doing so, but we have a lot of young guys, and this is an upperclassman. I don't see why we shouldn't have him and Kipper on the floor at the same time when possible.
One thing I do like, though, about De La Rosa, or don't like, is the fact that when he was at Kent State, he had a lot of offensive turnovers. I mean, that's the thing.
He also had a lot of fouls.
A lot of fouls, which led to offensive turnovers.
Right.
So that being said, you can 6 with 1/2 dozen the others, apples to oranges. But that's the thing in the Big Ten, offensive turnovers are going to eat you alive in the Big Ten.
Well, and let's not forget that
that's the only disagreement I have.
No, and I understand what you're saying, but you have to understand the conference in which Kent State is in,
right,
and what Illinois is in.
I get you.
So with that said, you have a guy that's obviously not going to be the number 1, number 2 option on this team.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But if he can be an enforcer within the confines of the rules, I can understand getting a couple fouls. Being an enforcer, we see it in the NBA all the time. We saw it with Jarrett Jackson Jr. and Miles Bridges at Michigan State many times.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to tone it down just a little bit. We don't need a Draymond Green-esque player. Right. We just need someone with that kind of attitude to put on the floor and just kind of intimidate the other team. This is no one in the past 5 years has been afraid to play Illinois. I think this is a guy that can change that. And I just, when he's healthy, I want to see him in there.
One guy I didn't talk about is Andres Feliz. And the reason why I left him out was for the fact that I feel like, yes, he's going to come off the bench because he is the best point guard coming out of the JUCO system last season. That being said, he's a point guard. He's a true point guard. He doesn't have near as much size as Io does. But that being said, when Frazier needs to come out for a break, they know they got somebody out there that can run the floor for him when he's not on the bench, or when he's on the bench. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Last year we had Tijon Lucas out there running the floor. That was just an absolute nightmare and a joke. So with Feliz, I feel like he's going to transition well coming out of the JUCO system, being the number 1 guard to the Big Ten. I feel like he's going to be all right when Frazier's not on the floor. But you can also pair him up with Frazier as well. So it's a win-win.
I'm glad you touched on him because he was a guy I wanted to bring up as well. He was another one of those guys watching those practice sessions that really, really impressed me. He was passing the ball well, shooting the ball extremely well. And we saw his chemistry with the team as well. He's fitting right along. He is an upperclassman guy guys can look to and kind of listen to. But Andres Feliz looked really, really good. I still like the energy and the electricity that we get with Io and Tevion on the floor. I think we've already seen what they can do together, having that kind of talent on the floor at the same time. But Andres Feliz looked really good, and he's not a bad option at any of those spots, 1 or 2, whenever someone needs a break or someone goes down. But he looked really, really good in those practice sessions.
Let me just say one thing about Lucas is I agree with you in the fact that he's not a floor general by any means, but I don't think that he's a bad basketball player.
No.
I just want to make that clear. I do think that he can play the game. He's just not a point guard.
He didn't fit the system.
Yeah, he didn't impress me at all, and it's because he didn't fit the system.
That's okay.
He can play ball. He can ball.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like if he was still a part of the team, I think that he could be a viable option in the second unit. But I don't think that he's by any means a point guard.
No.
Okay.
If he was still there, I think he would be really good with this kind of this backyard style of basketball that we've seen so far.
Exactly.
I think he would be really, really good in that, where there's not really a floor general. Now we all know that Frazier is still that floor general. He's in charge. You do what he says. But even with that being said, he is in charge. It's still loose. It's not you have to do this when this happens. It's go and do as you please, set each other screens, picks, do whatever you want to do, just make it work. And I think Tijon Lucas could have been a good option this year, but last year when they were playing that more rigid play calling type of basketball, it didn't really work out for him.
I want to touch on Illini recruiting real quick. Cause,
sure.
We talked about it the other day. We had Terrence Shannon Jr., E.J. Liddell, and Oscar Shibwe on campus last weekend. It was a good weekend from everything I heard. Everything went as well as it was supposed to. I'm going to put this out there. E.J. Liddell has narrowed it down to 3 schools: Illinois, Ohio State, and Mizzou. So everything I've heard through external resources has said that His top two are honestly Ohio State and University of Illinois.
So Missouri's off the list.
It's in his top three, but
It's on the list, but it's not looking
but he's leaning
likely.
toward the other two. So it's less likely he's going to go to Mizzou. More likely he's either going to commit here or to the Ohio State
It's
University.
like 40-40-20 right now.
Absolutely.
Well, see, that's really good news, though, because every time it comes down to Missouri and Illinois always gets left in the dust.
Yep.
So that's
We've
great
shown
news.
that this season with football recruits that are like I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm blanking, but we've seen it.
Yeah.
With football this season. But so they had a good visit. There's one highlight I kind of want to take away from it. It's on IlliniInquirer.com. If you guys, it's a good website if you need to get more Illini information than what we can talk about on our segments here. It's about Terrence Shannon Jr. They had an alumni, / stars deal event going on that week as well, that weekend, and Flying Illini, great. One of the best players that honestly could come out of Illinois. Dad's going to argue with me on that because there's a million of them. But Kendall Gill came by at practice and with Terrence Shannon Jr. and said this to him. He said, this is what Kendall Gill told him. He said, he saw me play in Las Vegas. This is what Shannon Jr. said, and saw that I was really good. And why not showcase my talents at home where everybody will support me? So Terrence Shannon Jr., obviously a Chicago kid out of Belleville. That's a lot of insight, a lot of encouragement, a lot of like, hey man, just come to Illinois and just show us what you got. And then going off of that, Deion Thomas tweeted E.J. Liddell a couple days ago saying, hey man, I got records in Champaign that need busted. So those are two Illini greats, Illini legends, talking to these young kids, showing how much they want to see them in Champaign.
Well, and I like that you brought up Kendall Gill, because I think in that situation, it's not just a guy who is an exceptional college player. He excelled at the NBA level as well. And when you have a guy of that caliber talking to a teenager and telling him, I want to see you here because I see potential in you that I did back in the 90s. And when you have, like you said, when you have essentially a legend like that telling these kids, or at least Shannon Jr., that we want you here, that's got to sit in your head, because these are kids younger than us,
Mm-hmm.
And when that sets in, they'd be like, wow, I would really like to be here. I would like to impress such and such, whether that's Kendall Gill, whether that's any one of these Illinois legends that are talking to these could-be recruits.
Well, and I love that comment to E.J. Liddell, too. Hey, I've got records I need broken. That's not only saying, hey, he already knows that the fans here support him. He already knows the cities here support him. He knows the states support him. But to get those legends out there, these guys that hold these records saying, hey, you have a legitimate chance to go out there and not only beat my records, but be some of the best players in Illinois history. And we saw what those guys did. They went to the NBA. They had successful careers. And I think that's a major selling point, because nobody wants to just go to college to play basketball. The ultimate goal is the NBA. So to be able to come to a university, break records, become a great, and then go to the NBA after that, it's a major selling point to see that this progression is possible. And you can have it with all of this support that we're showing you.
I just feel like we need to land E.J. Liddell and Shannon Jr., if not both or one of them. But also we need Sheboy, who also had a great visit. Everybody loved him as well. He's kind of the star of the show with the crowd. He kind of won the crowd over just for the fact that he's a top 5 rebounder in the country. We don't really have a rebounder yet that you can classify, except for De La Rosa when he gets healthy. But that being said, De La Rosa's got one season. This is his only season he's got. Sheboy can have 4. So I don't know. It's a good weekend. We need to land at least one of them 3, if not all 3. There's no reason why we can't.
No, there's no reason why we can't, but like you said, 1 would be nice. 2 would be great. 3 would be fantastic.
If I had to pick one, it would be EJ, though. Honestly. It would be EJ Liddell.
And that's fair. We'll be monitoring that. I know you will be, for sure. But let's go ahead and, first of all, switch gears here, and let's talk about some football. Let's start off with the Thursday night matchup last night between the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams, rocking those sweet throwback uniforms from the 80s.
Yeah.
Loved it. Shout out to Eric Dickerson, one of my favorite players of all time. He looked good wearing those goggles in that blue and yellow. But let's talk about Jared Goff. He had a hell of a night. Pretty much a Hollywood ending to a game where he threw 5 touchdown passes, threw for 465 yards, 26 of 33. Looked like one of the elite quarterbacks in this league, if he wasn't already. Compared to Kirk Cousins, who did not have a bad night, actually had a pretty good night. Just the defense gave up more points than the Rams did.
Yeah, and he also got sacked 4 times.
And that too. We'll talk about his offensive line here in a second. Kirk Cousins, 3 touchdowns, 422 yards, 36 of 50. This game was just really fun to watch. I mean, it went back and forth. The Vikings took the lead there for a second in the second quarter. The Rams came out at halftime in the third quarter firing away again after those 4 first-half touchdowns. Tyson, just let me get your overall thoughts on the game. This was probably one of my favorite ones so far this season, besides the Bucs coming out against the Saints in Week 1. But go ahead and give me your thoughts on this one.
Well, it was a great game. Everyone's like, the defense wasn't there. This wasn't a game about defense. We know these defenses are outstanding. And we're like, how can you say that? They put up over 30 points on each other. Because their offenses are that good, too. This was just an absolute shootout. And I think we've seen how strong the Rams are now. These are 2 NFC championship contenders. And at this point, it looks like it's not about beating the Rams. It's about, can you keep up? The only shot you've got is to keep up with them and hopefully pull something on slick off at the end. Because they're averaging 35 points a game, something like that. So the Rams are unreal right now. They look unstoppable. They have that potential of the 2007 Patriots almost perfect season. They look so good. It was a great game to watch. There was so much going on. Even though the defense doesn't look like it was there, Cale touched on it. The Rams had 4 sacks on Kirk Cousins. It was really great, just football to watch. Now, there was a couple mental lapses. Sam Shields plays for the Rams now. I didn't like him with Green Bay. I don't really like him there. We saw they threw a couple touchdowns over him.
Let's not forget that Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib were both out this game.
Exactly. The Rams were hurting a little bit on their defensive end, or on their secondary there. So this was really just a great game to watch. I didn't really have any complaints, offense or defense. I saw both sides of the ball, and usually I'm a defensive guy. I would love to see a 7-3 game. But I have just as much fun watching when the defenses are there and still performing, but they can put up a bunch of points on each other.
Cousins got sacked 4 times. Darnold had 2 of them. That's the only thing I want to talk about of this game. That's unreal. So Aaron Darnold had 50% of the sacks last night. That's just amazing.
Yeah, and actually I'm glad you touched on Aaron Donald because the way that he sacked Kirk Cousins.
Which one, the first time or the second time?
I just want to say both. Notice he didn't get a penalty because I think he did it the quote-unquote right way.
Yeah,
instead of throwing his body on the quarterback and getting this flags that Clay Matthews continues to complain about.
He needs to.
He needs to complain about, but at the same time, if the rule is going to stay, Aaron Donald showed you what you need to do. Exactly. He threw him down and he rolled off of him instead of throwing his body into him through the ground with that force. And then the second time he just threw him down because Aaron Donald's a monster. I really enjoyed watching the Rams last night. I mean, they were my Super Bowl prediction before the season even started, before preseason even started. And I'm going to stick by that. They're 4-0 right now. I saw an interesting statistic today on NFL.com. They have the same amount of touchdown passes, the same amount of rushing touchdowns. They're averaging more points per game and more yards per game than the 2002 Rams that won the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. There's no reason why this team shouldn't be the favorites right now. The Patriots have fallen off. The Steelers look shaky. There's no one in the AFC, I believe, that can challenge this team if they were to make it to the Super Bowl.
The only teams left undefeated in the AFC are the Dolphins
and the Chiefs.
The Chiefs are the only legitimate contender left, I think.
Right, based off your premise of to beat this team, you have to outscore them.
Yeah.
But to me, if Talib is healthy and Peters is healthy, I don't think Patrick Mahomes being in that situation, being his second year in the league, I just personally don't believe he can do it because the Chiefs' defense is that shaky.
Well, yeah, and we've seen what Patrick Mahomes has done so far this season, but that is an unreal pace to keep up for 16 games.
It is.
TDs.
Right. He's played absolutely out of his mind so far, just like Ryan Fitzpatrick did for the first couple of weeks, just like Jared Goff is still playing. But Jared Goff has more of a team around him, I believe, than the Chiefs do, especially on the defensive side.
There is no weakness to this Rams team other than if you want to criticize their linebacker position. But the only reason the linebacker position looks weak whatsoever is when you compare it to the other positions on defense. When you have superstar corners and you have superstar D linemen and you still have really good linebackers, you can say, oh yeah, it probably needs some work. But there's no one on offense.
There's just not really any work for the linebackers to do.
No.
They can't put up the stats because Aaron Donald's getting 2 sacks, because the defensive backs are shutting everything down. There's just really nothing for them to do. They're patrolling, making sure nothing does happen.
Exactly.
But the defense is so outstanding that they look worse than they are. They're still great linebackers. They just don't have anything to do.
What do you do when you can't hold a team under 30 points? What do you do?
Start breaking people's legs and praying.
There's nothing you can do. I think we also touched on this maybe a month or two ago when we were talking about average score per NFL team. And I think it's around 20 or 21 points.
Yeah.
This team hasn't scored under 30 the entire year.
Their lowest game is 31 this year.
It blows my mind. That is absolutely insane. Todd Gurley, I mean, he doesn't even need 20 carries for this team to win. And last night he still got 83 yards. So, and not to mention the total yards was over 100 because he caught a few balls out of the backfield.
And he caught a touchdown pass.
They loved those wheel routes last night. Yep. The linebackers that Minnesota was sticking on them.
Absolutely abusing Anthony Barr back there.
And Cooper Kupp is a prime example of that. Yeah. 2 touchdown passes, both times Anthony Barr's assignment. The Vikings did not adjust.
Anthony Barr's assignment was on Todd Gurley on the touchdown pass he caught too. Gurley just went right past him.
And that's no disrespect to Anthony Barr because he's an outstanding linebacker. But in coverage, he can't keep up.
Yep.
There's no way he's keeping up with Cooper Kupp. There's sure as hell isn't a way that he's keeping up with Todd Gurley.
Fastest running back in the league.
Right. So it's just, man, it was something to watch. And shout out to anyone that had Cooper Kupp on their fantasy team because he got
Gary.
Gary. He had 136 points, or not 100, but 36 points. Fantasy points for a wide receiver. That was insane.
If you get on ESPN right now and go to the Rams-Vikings game, the first 2 videos that pop up under that game, Anthony Barr is trailing behind a receiver that caught a ball for a touchdown. He got absolutely abused last night, and Gavin said it. He is not a bad linebacker by any means. He's phenomenal, one of the best in the league. He
Believe me,
will hit you and destroy you.
I don't want to compliment him because he's in my division, but I see him twice a year.
But they found out what his weakness was, and they absolutely abused it.
Wasn't Anthony Barr the one that broke Rodgers last year?
No, that was Kendricks. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was Michael Kendricks landed on him, I want to say.
I'm going to do some research.
Cale, go ahead and look that up. No, I thought this was... Thursday Night Football is supposed to have a primetime matchup. I thought this was the best one yet.
This was primetime.
Yeah. Other than, opening night, Eagles-Falcons was supposed to be better than what it was. We thought the matchup was potentially one of the best ones all season. But, yeah, this took the cake by far.
Absolutely.
So let's go ahead and move on here.
One thing real quick. I wanted to say you guys touched on Aaron Donald. Before this game, he was actually incredibly frustrated that his stats weren't what they were. And I think it was great for him to have a 2-sack game and 5-tackle game last night.
Against a worthy opponent.
Yeah. But I think that'll do nothing but boost him up because he was frustrated because he signed this contract and he wasn't putting out the numbers like he was supposed to, and he was mad at himself. And it's great to see that kind of recognition on a player by himself to come out and say, hey, I need to do better, and he did.
I was right. It was Anthony Barr.
Yeah.
It was Anthony Barr.
All
Wow,
right.
okay,
Yeah.
So we were proved wrong. Thank you, Cale, for that stat check.
No problem.
Let's go ahead and move on here. We need to preview the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to Soldier Field on Sunday, take on the Chicago Bears.
It's tragic.
Fitz tragic. I'm going to go ahead and still say Fitz magic. Through over 400 yards in his first 3 games, leads the league in passing touchdowns as well as passing yards. Actually, I think Jared Goff just took that from him after last night, but we'll see what he's able to do on Sunday. Khalil Mack, we touched on it last week. 3 forced fumbles in 3 straight games. He's got, I think, 4 or 5 sacks on the season. If 3, it might be 4.5. But he's a monster. He's continuing to rack up those stats. You can see why Chicago traded for him, why they gave him that largest extension for a defensive player in NFL history. And I'm really looking forward to this one. I think this is going to be a better game than people hype it up to be. They think Fitzpatrick is done. I also think that Fitzpatrick is not done, not just because he's on my fantasy team, but because we saw what he did in the second half against the Steelers and almost came back and won that game at Heinz Field. Or I'm sorry, they were at home, but still against Big Ben, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, and then their star running back, James Conner, out of nowhere. The guy's still a stud. It's just what he's able to do with Tampa Bay's defense being really subpar is really incredible to me. I think the emergence of Deshaun Jackson this year has been something to watch.
Back.
And Mike Evans, an animal. Also, O.J. Howard, he's been really solid.
Had a
piece
rough
for them.
game last week, but the first 2 weeks he played
Right.
really
So
well.
far, he's been really solid. I still have the Bears coming out on top in this one, just for
They're
the fact
under
that
3.5. That's a good thing.
Oh, okay.
That's a good thing.
Okay, I was like, I don't understand betting odds.
The Bears are under 3.5.
Okay. I'm taking them at home.
They have the best odds to win.
I'm taking them at home. That's
They have the best
what
odds
I'm
to win.
saying. That's what I'm saying.
Have the Buccaneers announced who their starting quarterback is going to be?
It's Ryan Fitzpatrick.
It is?
They announced
Okay.
it. Hey, I agree with Gavin. Take him until you can't take him anymore.
I mean, yeah, ride the wave.
It's tragic.
Yeah, he went Fitzmagic to Fitztragic real quick last week,
Okay,
but
she was saying-
pulled it back in the second half.
Tragic or stagnant?
I would say stagnant because he still
Stagnant?
threw for over 400 yards. That's no easy feat.
This is still the same Ryan Fitztragic that led the Jets,
Right.
led the Bills, that couldn't muster together about
done talking.
nothing but 5-6 wins a season.
Tyson, let me say this. This is a team that we thought would only win 2 games. They are now 2-1 after 3 weeks. I think that he's played above average.
I'm not saying he hasn't played above average. I think he's played really well. In fact, if you look at the quarterback comparison, Ryan Fitzpatrick has thrown for 1,230 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 4 picks, whereas Mr. Trubisky's thrown for 500 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 picks.
Oh, we don't need to talk about it.
You're not wrong.
Right,
You're not
so
wrong.
I think Fitzpatrick has played extremely well. And for his career, Fitzpatrick has thrown more touchdown passes than Troy Aikman, fun fact.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Hit me with
he has
the
thrown more touchdown
history.
passes than Troy Aikman. I don't think that makes him a Hall of Fame 3 Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Well, he
Not
also
even
didn't have
possible.
Emmitt Smith or Michael Irvin.
Exactly. But I don't know. It's hard to compare the two because Troy Aikman didn't have to do it all by himself. He didn't have to throw this many touchdowns because he has Emmitt Smith to punch it in for him.
And the greatest offensive line in NFL history.
Arguable, but yes. But another reason why Troy Aikman didn't have to throw the ball that many times and throw that many touchdowns because he had that line. He had Emmitt Smith. But that line was the greatest run-blocking offensive line in NFL history.
You're not wrong.
He actually took several hits. They weren't the greatest pass-blocking offensive line. Still great. But Troy Aikman had some adversity as well. But just that fun fact for you, Fitzpatrick has thrown more touchdown passes than Troy Aikman.
Fair enough.
But I do not think he is even close to an elite-level quarterback.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the unknown factor
Right.
with this guy.
But for the season, he's played great, and I think he gives them a great opportunity to win in Chicago this week. But I'm still picking the Bears because of their defense. I think if anyone's going to shut Ryan Fitzpatrick down, it's going to be the Chicago Bears defense.
I'm going to make my official Mitchell Trubisky prediction after this game because this will be officially his 16th start, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
I'm making
He
my
will have
prediction.
officially played a full
I am
season.
making my official documentation of Mitchell Trubisky after this game.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else after that.
No, I'm just letting you know that's how it's going to go.
Oh, that's fine.
Because I've already talked about him.
Personally, for me, I really, really, really need to see him throw at least 2 touchdowns. He's had one game where he's thrown more than 1 touchdown, and for his career now, he has 9 touchdowns and 10 interceptions.
Yikes.
Over 15 games. He's just not doing enough for me yet. I think he really needs to have a bust-out game for me to not start throwing tomatoes at him and stuff. He really needs to perform.
Which goes back to my original argument is how much time do we need to give him? This game, Sunday, is going to be his first full season. It's
16 games.
It's 16 games. The 16th start, Gavin. Let me say that. My thing is he's had 15 games to figure it out. His decision-making to me is absolutely terrible still.
Yeah.
I haven't seen much significant improvement. I've seen slight, not significant. That's where I'm coming from on the whole thing.
Well, I think you also have a head coach that's a former offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid that had Alex Smith at quarterback.
Right. I get that, too. That's why I haven't really made a full judgment on it yet.
So let me say this, is that Alex Smith was a great decision maker, which I think he's letting Trubisky call the plays on the field and make decisions on the field as if it were Alex Smith. I think that he still needs to push him in the right direction and say, this is probably where you need to go with it. You don't put a guy out there and give him 5 different options and say you pick. This is a guy that's still only 23 years old. He's very young. All right? So I understand, and I'll call them fair. They're fair criticisms of this kid. But I think we need to remember that he is just that. He is a kid. All right? And the fact that he still, as of today, has not played an entire 16-game season. All right? I say just give him a little bit more time. I still think as of this point he's better than Jay Cutler. Would you rather bring Jay back?
Yep.
Jay Cutler could get us a playoff win.
He'd also make it to the playoffs and sit on the sidelines riding an exercise bike, but I guess that's a story for a different day. All I'm saying is if you're a Bears fan, don't give up on this kid.
I'm not giving up on him yet. I just need to see more improvement.
And we'll see more from him as the season goes on. The Bears are 2-1 for a reason. All right,
Leaders in the NFC North.
Yes, first place in the NFC North. Let's not forget it by a full game.
Yep.
No, I'm committed to Mitch moving forward.
See, that's the thing. There's guys like you when it comes to Mitch. There's guys like you, and there's guys like me. Okay, so you're one of the guys that's 100% committed to him.
Yeah.
I haven't figured out if I am.
I still think he's got great potential, and I still think he can lead this Bears team. I just haven't seen anything that says he is leading this Bears team, that says he does have this. I think he has the capability to do great things. I just haven't seen anything from him yet that says he's almost there.
I understand that, but what I'm trying to say is he doesn't have to be an elite-level quarterback for this team to succeed.
Right, we've seen that. They've got 2 wins and 1 loss.
All he has to, I'm not even asking him to be Jim McMahon. I'm asking him to be Jim Harbaugh. That's it.
Whoa.
That's all we need.
You calm yourself over there.
That's all we need. We need a Trent Dilfer. That's what we need to win the Super Bowl. That's all we need. If I'm wrong, let me know.
Well, you're not wrong. You got one of the strongest defenses so far in the league this season.
That's what's going to win us games.
Good running back play.
That's what has won us games. Because Mitch did not win us the game against Arizona. That was the defense.
Touché.
Jordan Howard won us the game against Arizona. It wasn't Mitch.
Touché.
Tariq Cohen won us the game against Arizona.
So,
yeah, well, I include him in the defense.
That's my end-all, be-all argument for anybody that's not a
Well,
Bears
and
fan.
let's not forget about Eddie Jackson, Bryce Callahan, and Sam Ocho, Prince of Mukamara. Or not Sam Ocho. Adrian Amos, excuse me. Ocho's D-line. No, the whole secondary, the front four, even our linebackers, Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan. I cannot rave about this defense enough. I love it. And like Tyson said last week, this could very well be the best defense that we've seen since the Super Bowl winning team in '85. I can't make that up.
Even better defense than the defense that took them to the
Super Bowl 2006.
In 06.
Yeah.
That ended up losing, but I think it could even be even better than that.
Right. Well, I guess, I'm glad you mentioned that. Let me ask you this, because I want to get your honest football opinion. Is Mitchell Trubisky better than Rex Grossman, or could he be better than Rex Grossman?
Could he? Yes. Is he? No.
Because that's what we need.
As of right now, no, he is not better than Rex Grossman.
That's what we need in order for this team to succeed.
Does he have that potential to get there by the end of the season and become better?
Yes.
If not much better than Sexy Rexy was? Yeah, he has all kinds of potential. We just haven't seen it from him yet. He has it. He possesses it within himself. We saw it at North Carolina, but since he's come from North Carolina, we haven't. By the end of the season, I really hope that changes. I think they have a legitimate threat if he does pick up his play and he can start getting the ball to these great receivers they've got on the outside.
Let me end it with this. It took 2 years. Well, let me start by saying this. Each offensive coordinator or each head coach that is offensive-minded usually takes 2 years for it to take off. Mm-hmm. We saw it in the 49ers when Kyle Shanahan took over. It took 2 years for him to succeed and finally start getting wins with the quarterback and Jimmy Garoppolo. And then we saw it, the same thing happen with Sean McVay in Los Angeles with Jared Goff. It took 2 years for that offense to take off, along with everyone that they brought in the offseason. They signed like 14 different guys. But that's besides the point. I think Matt Nagy, if Trubisky doesn't take off this year, next year will be his time, because it usually takes, if we look back at history, 2 years for a great offensive mind with a good quarterback to take off. We've seen it with Adam Gase and Ryan Tannehill. Yeah. He missed a year, but this is his third year as Dolphins head coach. Now, second year with Ryan Tannehill, he's taking off. The Dolphins are 3-0. I can keep coming up with example after example. I think if we're going to solely judge Mitchell Trubisky with this new head coach this year, I'm saying disregard last season. Judge him on his statistics for this year and the way he's carrying this team this year, being the leader this year, and then compare that to next year. Because the Bears, even if they win this division, they're not going to go anywhere in the playoffs. I mean, they
have to play the Rams.
Right. Either way, can they get out of the wild card? All depends on who the other wild card team is. But there's no way that they come out of the divisional round. I don't think this team is good enough. But do I think they're good enough to possibly go 10-6 with this defense? I don't see why not. I think the schedule has been pretty lenient. We have the Bucs now. We have the Dolphins. We have the Patriots, who Tom Brady has looked awful this season. Yeah. I mean, awful. And then they have to play Green Bay again. We'll play them at home. We have to play the Lions twice, and we've seen what they've done other than beating the Patriots, but that's a different story for me because I think Matt Patricia had it out for Belichick. There's just all these teams that I think are the Bears are capable of beating. Yes, we have to play the Rams, and yes, we have to play the Vikings at Minnesota, but we saw what the Bills did to
beat
them.
Yeah.
So things are looking up for Chicago. I know I'm sort of
I'm not
ranting
saying that.
right now, but I think that even if this team does stall out and go 9-7 or 8-8, that's a great season. We went 5-11 last year. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to run this back next year, add to what we've been doing, give Mitch one more year in the league, give Matt Nagy one more year as a head coach, and I think we're in great business. We're in great shape.
Speaking of quarterbacks, I keep hearing a bunch of stuff about Dak, how he might be in the hot seat a little bit. Is that true? Or am I just...
No, I doubt it.
Well, real quick, speaking of Dak Prescott, that leads us to our next game. The Detroit Lions at the Dallas Cowboys, 3:25 on Sunday afternoon Central Time. Speaking of Dak, how can he bounce back in this next game, Tyson?
Complete a pass. I really don't know what to say at this point. The Cowboys' offense has just looked awful except for Zeke. I really don't even know what to say. Besides that, the Cowboys really need a win, and I'm so glad they're playing the Lions this week. I don't think the Lions will have that emotion that they had last week playing against the Patriots. Hopefully this can be another easy win like the Giants, because the Cowboys really need a kick in the ass. Hopefully this can be the jumpstart that gets them going. But Dak really just needs some confidence right now, and I think that still goes along. I'm going to harp on it again. Scott Linehan needs to figure out his play calling. The Rams, for the first 2 quarters, hardly threw a ball downfield. They are running 2, 3, 5-yard out routes and crossing patterns, and it's working. And Jared Goff is throwing for almost 500 yards a game. Why can't Scott Linehan do something similar with Dak? Give him easy throws to manage, get his completion percentage up, get his yardage up, and then you can start launching the ball down the field. Then you get guys open. Then you get the offense moving again, besides just stagnant the stuff that they've been running. They've been trying to throw 10, 12-yard passes instead of 4 to 6-yard passes. They've been trying to throw the ball downfield instead of giving it to Zeke for 2 yards. I just don't really understand what they're doing right now, and the offense has looked incredibly bad, but hopefully this can be a week that they can start to figure their stuff out.
Now, I'm glad that you mentioned Ezekiel Elliott because he had a run-in with the press in the locker room after the Seahawks game and said essentially the team needs to play better and he needs the ball more. What else can a guy say? What else can a guy of his caliber say?
You've been talking about that all year, though.
Yeah.
I've said that since before the games even started. Zeke needs 20 carries plus a game. Now, he actually said that the offense does not need to run through him more, but he says that they need better opportunities out of what they're given. He said they need to come out hot. They need to start scoring on the first drive instead of 3-and-outs.
Right, but what I'm alluding to is their best opportunity is to give him the
Right,
ball.
agreed. I completely agree. He said he doesn't necessarily need more touches. They just need to do more with those touches. Now, I agree with that, but why not do more and give him the ball 25 times a game? So, yeah, I completely agree. This is a guy, we saw him go for almost 8 yards a carry, 127 yards last week. I just don't know why they're not giving it to him more.
That's fair enough. What about Elliott's pass-catching ability? I know that the media and the NFL analysts have called him out this past week, especially during the Seahawks game. He had a few drops. How does a player fix that? How does a person that's supposed to pound it up the middle and they turn him into a receiver? How is he supposed to fix that?
Here's a funny idea. Stop throwing it to him. Just give it to him.
That's the answer I expected.
I don't understand why everybody's criticizing a running back on his pass-catching ability. Now, yeah, it would be great for him to do both, and he can. We saw it last year. He caught several screens, against the Steelers, he took an 82-yard screen for a touchdown. Caught a pass there, went 80 yards with it. We know he can catch the ball. He had a rough week, dropped a couple, but he's a running back. Give him the ball on the ground and let him run it. You don't have to throw it to him. He'll still get open. He'll still catch passes. We've seen him catch several passes for the first couple weeks. But that's not his game. Zeke is, give me the ball and let me dance with it. Let me pound you and let me get it done from here. I don't need to be tricksy and run around the outside and try and fake somebody out before I even touch the ball.
Dak Prescott also came out and said that he would like the ball in his hands more. He would like his number called. What are your thoughts on that? Dak running the football a little bit more.
Yes and no. Why would I want to see Dak run it when I can see Zeke run it? Now, Dak can do those quarterback draws that we like seeing. And I don't necessarily disagree with that because we saw week 1, he wouldn't run the ball. He would get to the line of scrimmage and dump it or throw it out of bounds or whatever. But I don't want to see him not run the ball. I love seeing him run the ball because he can. He has that ability, and we saw week 2 against the Giants when he did start to run the ball. He was getting 12 yards of carry. He was finding open holes. He was getting his receivers open because he had been agile throughout the game. So I don't have a problem with him running the ball more. But the only thing I do have against that is if you give him the ball more, that takes the ball more away from Zeke. And right now, Zeke's the only good thing that they've got going. So yes and no. If it's within... Honestly, I don't even want to hear his number called to run the ball. I want to see him make it happen by himself. So
Fair enough. All right, so your final prediction for this game, Detroit, Dallas at Jerry World?
yeah, I'm going to take Dallas. Hopefully. This can really be a turnaround for the Cowboys. They really need it. It better be a win if they want any shot at the rest of the season.
Fair enough. All right, let's talk about the last game here before we get to our Central Illinois High School football predictions. This is week 6, I believe. Our last game, Cleveland Browns at Oakland Raiders. Who do you guys have?
Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield. That sounds like a plan.
The Raiders have like a 65% chance of winning this game. I don't see how. Baker Mayfield single-handedly gives them a 50% chance of winning this game. And then he's going to throw it to Jarvis Landry 100 times, and Landry's going to catch it. So, I mean, I don't know how the Raiders are so high when they're 0-3.
Well, I think it's also the unknown factor is that they only saw Baker for a little over 2 quarters. No one's been able to game plan for him, and the 2 quarters that they have, Gruden's going to be watching that film 100 times over.
He's going to say, I wish I had Baker Mayfield.
You can't game plan against Magic.
No.
Things just happen, and when Baker's there, he makes things happen.
And you're not wrong. Let's not forget about David Njoku alongside Jarvis Landry. I personally think that Cleveland's going to roll away with this game.
I do too.
I think he's going to walk into Oakland and win by 20-plus points. It's crazy. Some people think that's an insane prediction, but
20-plus points, I don't know. I haven't seen the point capability from the Browns yet. But with Baker Mayfield, I think he gives them that potential.
I think the Raiders going against the Browns defense, it's going to be hard for them to get more than 14 points in this game.
Myles Garrett alone.
Yeah.
Well, not just him. I also think that their linebackers have played really well, and Denzel Ward is an animal.
The rookie, the safety or cornerback?
A corner out of Ohio State is an animal. He's got 2 forced fumbles and 2 interceptions now on the season. He's just a freak. He's just a freak, and that's the only way I can put it. Cleveland was we touched on it a few weeks ago. It was scrutinized for taking him 4th overall, but you can see why they did. I don't see why especially the Oakland defense with no pass rush on Baker. He should be able to shred that defense apart. He should be able to throw for at least a couple touchdowns. Carlos Hyde could have.
I'm glad you said that.
They have none because obviously John Gruden can't find. Oh, it's really hard to find a pass rusher, and they traded away the best one in the whole league. Thank you, Gruden. Thank you, Gruden.
I'm sorry, I got you off track, but that still kills me every time I hear that.
It's hilarious because it's after every single game. Coach, what was the problem? Well, we couldn't find a pass rush. Do you know who you had? Do you know who was on your roster? Oh, well, we didn't want to pay him. That's essentially what he's saying, but he hasn't come out. I'm going to go off on a tangent. Let me just go back to the game. Baker Mayfield should be able to tear that defense apart because he's going to have all day to throw. At least a couple touchdowns. Carlos Hyde get a couple touchdowns. And their new kicker, that rookie,
Corey Joseph, is that his name?
Sounds
right. Like that.
No reason why he shouldn't be able to get 2 or 3 field goals. That guy's got a heck of a leg. He's accurate.
50-yarder, 55-yarder in this somewhere.
And why not? I just think that this is a really bad time to be an Oakland Raiders fan. I think when the move to Las Vegas is complete, I think that everyone will be thankful this is finally over. Get a new start with those draft picks because you need them. But yeah, I think we're all confident in taking Cleveland in this game. Would love to see Baker Mayfield start his starting quarterback record 1-0 this season. But let's go ahead and finish up here with more football. Central Illinois High School Week 6. Tyson, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, and we have 10 games, 10 picks. Let's go ahead and start rolling.
All right, so our first game of the week is going to be Centennial and Urbana. Kind of a crapshoot battle here. Centennial sitting at 1-4, Urbana at 0-5. Centennial's one win, we know, came against Rich Woods a couple weeks ago. A rather difficult game to pick because neither one of these teams has really shown us anything. But, Cale, if you wanted to pick Urbana this week, I honestly wouldn't blame you, but I'm going to go with Centennial just because Urbana's been so bad.
Yeah, Well, I'm gonna take Centennial on this one as well, just because I've seen nothing from Urbana that makes me want to pick them. So, I mean, that's it.
I would be so far in the lead if I didn't pick Urbana. I'm going to take Centennial, too.
All right, you better not curse me going against your boys. But next game of the week is going to be Central against Danville. Another close one. Both teams sitting at 3-2. Both teams so far have Central has beat the other two Champaign and Urbana teams. Danville has beat the other two Champaign and Urbana teams. So for Danville beat Urbana 21-20. That doesn't give me a lot of hope. They're coming off a good win last week against Thornwood, 19-0, something like that.
Yeah, but a team that we didn't know a lot about.
Right.
So
a team that now sits at 0-5 now, I think, or 1-4. So they weren't a very great team. But I'm going to take Central in this one. I think Central will be the team that avoids the Champaign-Urbana area getting swept by Danville.
I'm gonna have to take the team with home field advantage, and I don't know what's inspiring me to take the Vikings in this one, because I think that Central's gonna walk away with it, but something's telling me to pick Danville. I think that shutting out a team is very hard to do, no matter who it is, because they always seem to let up at least one touchdown. So I think that they'll build off that momentum and finish 4-2.
They're both 3-2. We both know what they're capable of. I'm taking Danville. Home field.
All right, and looks like I'm alone here. I didn't think I would be, but I'll take that. Next game is going to be Mahomet Seymour against Effingham. Mahomet sitting at 1-4, a couple bad losses now. Against Effingham sitting at 3-2. One of their first positive seasons in a while, I want to say. Effingham is a team. I've said it before. PBL used to go to Effingham and beat them every year. A 2 to 3A school taking on a 4 to 5A school and beating them pretty handily. I don't really have a lot of faith in Effingham, but Mahomet Seymour really hasn't shown me a whole lot so far this season either. They did lose to Washington at the beginning of the year. I know I've touched on that several times. Washington, an outstanding team. But they lost last week by 3. Another close loss. They lost the week before by 1. I think Mahomet's finally going to pull it together and beat an Effingham team that I don't believe deserves that record of 3-2.
I agree. I think Mahomet's lost too many close games this year, and to every point that you alluded to, no reason why the Bulldogs shouldn't walk away with a win here.
Go Effingham.
All right. Our next game is going to be Monticello and Unity. I feel like this one's self-explanatory. Monticello's been out here murdering people, and Unity can't quite seem to find their stride, sitting at 1-4. I'm going Sages in this one easy.
Yeah, Monticello all the way. No reason.
And I think Cale's with us there, writing stuff down. Next game's going to be PBL against Salt Fork. PBL sitting at 4-1, 1 loss to the defending state champion Gibson City Falcons. Against Salt Fork sitting at 5-0. We saw what Salt Fork is capable against Waseca week 1, 14-12. They ended up beating the tough Waseca team. Salt Fork has played extremely well since then, beating everybody pretty handily. Hasn't been super close in any of their games. Sitting at undefeated, and I think this is the week that they will lose that. I've got PBL going into Salt Fork and taking them down. This is the first time that these teams have played since I remember watching PBL as a kid, up through my high school days and now and to now. This will be the first time they've played. Salt Fork plays in the same division as Bismarck-Henning. Bismarck-Henning, my senior year, was a team that hadn't lost in 3 years. And we went into Bismarck-Henning and we beat them. This is a conference that we have traditionally played well against, and I'll take PBL against Salt Fork.
I'm also going to take the Panthers in this one. Salt Fork, like that game you alluded to earlier, against Waseca Warriors. Waseca probably should have won that game, losing by 2 points. Their defense, I don't believe, is as good as PBL, and there's no reason PBL shouldn't be able to beat this team if Waseca held them to such a low score. We know PBL can put up points, and that's what I expect them to do in this game.
First time since week 1 I'm going to go against the alma mater. I'm taking Salt Fork.
I go with PBL in this one. I'm glad you talked about the defense, Gavin, because every week since week 1, I think they've only given up like 7 points.
Right.
Each week.
Less than 7 points, yeah.
So I respect your decision with Salt Fork there, Cale, but I'm glad you're finally going to hand me over the lead for the overall title here. Rantoul against Chillicothe IVC's coming up next. Battle of another crappers here, 1-4 each. Chillicothe losing to STM 41-42. They have the potential to put up a lot of points, and that's why I'm going with IVC in this one over Rantoul. Once again, I can't pick Rantoul. I just do not believe.
Fly, Eagles, fly. I picked them last week, and they made it closer than anyone expected. I think that STM is a better team than Chillicothe. I'm taking Rantoul. Fly, Eagles, fly. Show me that second win of the season.
Me and you are all over the place here, 'cause I'm taking the Eagles, too.
All righty. Me and Cale, we're going. Usually we're pretty close with a game or two separating us, and then. But all right, we're a little bit all over this week.
This is what we like to see.
This is way different compared to last week.
Oh, yeah.
This one, I'm a little torn on our next game here. St. Joe against Prairie Central.
This is going to be another good one.
Both teams sitting at 4-1. It's going to be a great games. Both teams one loss coming to Pontiac, who is 5-0 now. St. Joe coming off a tough loss, 42-20, I think it was. Prairie Central coming off a good win. I really, really hate picking against St. Joe.
Can we pick this one last?
All right, deal. We'll come back to this.
We'll think about it.
I got to think about this.
Okay. Our next game is going to be STM, St. Thomas More against BCC, Bloomington Central Catholic. Bloomington Central Catholic.
What happened to them?
0-5 on the season. I couldn't begin to tell you what happened. This is traditionally a team that goes 7-2 or better. STM sitting at 3-2. I have STM, another team again. I have a hard time trusting. I know what they're capable of, and I know what they're not capable of. But BCC has looked so bad, and I don't think this will be a week that they pull out a win either. I'll take BCC going 0-6, STM at 4-2.
Yep, I'll take the Sabres in this one. You hit the nail on the head with it. I'm taking the Sabres.
It's not that I trust STM more; it's that I don't trust BCC now. They've
Right.
absolutely fallen apart.
That's a complete mutual decision between the three of us.
Yep, there we go. So we've got Tuscola against Sullivan, Okaw Valley coming up next. Tuscola sitting at 4-1. We know the tough loss they had a couple weeks ago. And Okaw Valley sitting at 0-5. I think this is another easy pick. At least it is for me. I'm going Tuscola for sure.
Get out the black jumpsuits, boys, because we're going to be going to a funeral on Saturday morning after Tuscola gets done on Friday night. No reason why this team shouldn't win by 48-plus points.
Yep.
I mean, that's it. That's it.
All right.
This next game, or the St. Joe game.
Cale's still over here pondering, but our last game before that one, we've got Villa Grove Heritage 2-3 this season so far, up against Bismarck Henning Rossville Alvin, sitting at 5-0. Have played really, really well throughout the beginning of the season, sitting at 5-0. They've been destroying people so far. They've had a couple close ones, but I don't think this will be, and I'm going to take Bismarck Henning in this one.
I'm gonna take the opposite side of this one. I'm gonna go ahead and take the Devils. I think 2 of the 3 losses that Heritage Villa Grove has had this year has been against top tier talent in the state. I don't know much about BHRA, but I'm going to go ahead and take Heritage Villa Grove just because.
Small school.
Just
small school.
Right.
Like I said, they hadn't lost in 3 years when they came to us and we beat them. They had an off year the year after that. They had an off year last year. Still made it to the playoffs each year. But I think we see them right now. They're 5-0. I think this is their bounce back year. I think this will be another very close to undefeated season for them.
Yeah, I'll take the Devils. I'll just take the opposite on them.
You are right though. Villa Grove sitting at 2-3. 3 tough losses. Cumberland undefeated.
Yep.
Tuscola
Was
4-1,
undefeated at the time. Right.
And Arcola. Three very good teams in the 1A division. And I think Villa Grove does have a shot, but I got to go with Bismarck here.
I do too.
Yeah. Good pick from Cale there. We finally agreed on something.
We got 2 or 3 we've agreed on.
Back to St. Joe and Prairie Central. I'm going to let you guys choose this one first because I honestly am torn. Hey,
Man, I still am. I didn't take St. Joe against Pontiac.
I did.
But they were still able to score 3 touchdowns on that team. And Pontiac is just, man, they are so solid.
They both lost to Pontiac, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I think it was very similar score lines as well in each game. I think it was roughly 42-20 in both of them. I don't remember the exact score.
I actually think that Pontiac scored 1 more touchdown on Prairie Central. I think that's what's going to do it in for me. I understand they have home field advantage, but I just can't see St. Joe losing 2 in a row. I got to go with the Spartans in this one.
Why'd you write that on mine?
My bad.
I didn't pick them yet.
Sorry. Anyway, before that, me and Tyson, we played St. Joe our entire high school careers at absolutely everything.
Yep.
I know
we didn't win a whole lot of those.
We know what they can do. Prairie Central, they're really surprising me this season.
Prairie Central was a team that we traditionally beat up on pretty much.
Yes, and I'm going St. Joe. I just can't. I gotta go St. Joe just for the fact that we've played them. I know what they're capable of.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I'm going to take PC. This goes back to a home field advantage thing. You guys took Danville for home field advantage earlier. I'll take PC for the home field
That's
advantage
another
now.
thing I was thinking about.
Yeah.
But PC have looked outstanding in all of their wins. Like we touched on it last week a little bit, St. Joe's wins haven't been as impressive as Pontiac's, and that's why I took Pontiac over St. Joe. And once again, I think PC's wins have been much more impressive. They've played a little bit tougher competition thus far. I think they've had one game different. Both teams have played Rantoul and won big. Both teams have played Unity and won big. But yeah,
I just want to allude to that Rantoul game real quick because PC still allowed Rantoul to score 3 separate touchdowns, and St. Joe held them to 1. I think that is what it's going to come down to. I think their defense is just a little bit
St. Joe
better.
also only put up 20-something points on Rantoul, even though they only gave up 1 touchdown.
I think it was 30-6 was the final.
Whereas Prairie Central scored 48 or something like that. But it was like
so it's going to come down to a really good offense versus a really good defense, and I expect them to hold true on the defensive side. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good game, and I'm glad this was on here. But I'll tell you what, that's going to wrap it up for us here. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure to go ahead and leave us a comment or a rating down below in the box. Also, make sure to hit that big red subscribe button and click that bell icon to the right of it so you never miss a beat. Also, make sure to follow us on our social media page at sports_twin. And with that said, my name is Gavin Campbell. That was Tyson Snyder, Cale Fleming, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.
Based upon the view, you can't have too much trouble, so why can't we do it? Everybody's doing it. Let's strike the fireworks, stand back and enjoy it. Oh, oh. Bombs